So for this lesson, we are going to learn about inscribed angles, specifically two inscribed angles that intercept the same arc. So if two inscribed angles intercept the same arc, then the inscribed angles are congruent. So what does this mean? If we're looking at this example here, we have two inscribed angles. We have ADB and we have ACB. So if you notice, both of these angles intercept arc AB, right? So if two angles intercept the same arc, that means that these two angles are automatically congruent. So that means here that angle D is going to be congruent to angle C because they intercept the same arc. So for example 1, it says use the diagram to answer the following questions. It says what is the intercepted arc of GEH? So if we look at angle GEH, that's this guy right here. The intercepted arc is GH. Then it asks, what is the measure of GH? Well, we know that the angle GEH intercepts that arc and it's 75. So the arc itself has to be twice that value. So it's going to be 150 degrees. And I got that by doing 75 times 2. Next it says, what other angle intercepts arc GH? So if we're looking here, we actually do have another angle that intercepts this arc. It is going to be GFH. All right, so our answer would be GFH. It says, what is the measure of GFH? Well, if this arc is 150, we know that the intercepted angle, or this angle that intercepts that arc, has to be half of that. So that's also 75. So our answer would be 75 degrees. For example 2, it says set up and solve for x. So if we look here, we have two different angles. We've got this angle right here, and we've got this angle right here. Now, one thing I want to point out, if kind of seeing these angles and visualizing them is pretty tricky, if you've got some colored pencils or highlighters at home, feel free to go through when you're doing these types of problems and actually highlight the angles and highlight the arc that gets intercepted. It might kind of help you visualize what's going on. So if we're looking at this picture here, we see that this angle and this angle both intercept this arc right here, which means that those angles must be congruent. So what we can do is set these two angles equal to each other. So we're going to do 2x plus 11 equals 4x minus 3. And what we want to do is we want to get all the x's on one side and all the constants on the other side. So I'm going to subtract 2x. I get 11 equals 2x minus 3. Add 3. I get 14 equals 2x. X equals 7. And if we look, when we plug 7 into both of these, we will get positive values. So we know that our answer is good. So for the next one, it says set up and solve for x. So again, the same type of problem. If we look, this angle and this angle both intercept the exact same arc, which would be this arc right here. So that means that these two angles must be congruent. So we can set them equal to each other. We get 3x plus 7 equals 6x minus 11. We go ahead and solve. Minus 3x minus 3x. We get 3x minus 11 equals 7. Bring the 11 over. We get 18 equals 3x, so x equals, 6. And again, if we look and we plug 6 back into either of these, we are both going to get positive values, so we are good. So now for example 4. Use the diagram to answer the following questions. What angle intercepts arc AB? So if we're looking at arc AB here, what's an angle that intercepts it? Well, we could say ADB intercepts it. And it says, what's the measure of that angle? Well, if the arc is 124, we know that the angle that intercepts that arc needs to be, I should say the inscribed angle that intercepts that arc is going to be half that value. So if you do 124 divided by 2, you get 62 degrees. Then it asks, what other angle intercepts arc AB? Well, that's going to be angle ACB. And it says, what is the measure of that angle? Again, the measure of that angle, since it is an inscribed angle, is going to be half the measure of the arc. So we do 124 divided by 2, which is 62 degrees. So at this point, I would highly recommend making sure that you do some practice problems. Do the problems that are associated with this packet given to you on the Google document. In addition, I would recommend going through this worksheet that I did hand out on that last day of school. I should say the last day that we were in session. If you look, you have one that says Inscribed Angles Review Worksheet. That's really what I want you to do for practice as well. The answers to this are posted, so make sure you do that practice. Make sure you understand, and please, 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 if you have any questions, feel free to email me.